So Scriptapalooza. So the best response to your strategies or scripts for your best responses when a client, when you're in a shopping situation, right? So a couple of things, and this could be upfront, like right away, like as soon as the first thing they say to you is, hey, I'm shopping around for a mortgage. And that's the first, thing out of their mouth. Or during the discovery call where you're like, well, yeah, I'm talking to some other lenders. Or, it's after pre-approval now, you've been down the road with them. It was never part of the discussion. And now it's like, well, I'm checking with some other lenders. So what are the strategies? And I really want, I mentioned, I talked to all the people that have just done a lot of volume, because I think if you're newer, this is a little difficult thing to do. And that's where this is coming from. So G, Chris, Jack, Casey, Christine, John, you guys have done lots of loans and you've had this come up. And I don't know if this is something that you ever truly master. It's never 100%, but give me something that and whoever wants to raise their hand and go first, turn on your mic and let's start talking, because this is just an opportunity for us to learn and share. So who's got a script? Who's got a strategy?
So I don't really, I've never really had a lot of luck with just using one script, because I feel like every conversation is different, right? You have to get an idea of really what their concerns are. Some people just ask, they say that right up front. And so a mistake I used to make all the time, and probably still do sometimes, is kind of take that personally, right? Like, I know I'm going to add all this value. I'm probably going to get your offer accepted, if I know the listing agent. And I know you're going to have a great experience, but talk is kind of cheap that early on, like, unless they've done some research online and seen your reviews. So I kind of just deflect it and kind of empathize with them and say, of course you are, you want to get the best deal because, we're talking about the largest debt of your life. And during this process, we'll review, lots of different rate and cost combinations, so we can help you figure out which one is the best one for you. And then I always just say something really short like that, agree with them that is an important thing, and I'm okay if they do that. But then go back to my conversation, whether it's a discovery call, right? I'm trying to get to the Zoom meeting, because I think at that point, then we have a much more detailed conversation about rates and fees. And, we'll pull up, I think something that I mentioned already, I started doing this year, is I always used to show maybe no points, 1 point. But now I kind of change that up to add the verbiage, for 1 point, I'll put advertised rate, 1 point, and then I'll do a low cost option, 0 points. And then sometimes I'll do a Rocket Mortgage option with 2 points, because you can pull up the Rocket Mortgage screen and show them that most of their rate quotes are with 2 points. By the time we get to that stage, they understand, right? So to keep this shorter, I'm trying to not get frustrated, because my whole demeanor would change when I did that. And then it's like, I don't even want to talk to you anymore. I want to move on to the next call. But you have to figure out, I heard at some point, there's a third of the people that will always work with you, a third that you have to kind of win over, show them the value, and a third that you're probably never gonna get that loan. And so part of that is just feeling them out in that conversation. If I feel like they're the third that, like, that's all they want is a rate, I mean, they keep cutting me off maybe in the conversation. It's not a friendly conversation, right? They're not interested in what I have to say. And then I will probably keep the discovery call a lot shorter and find out what their goals are, put together a total cost analysis, do a video and send it off to them, rather than wasting an hour trying to do a Zoom meeting. So if I feel like they're just in the extreme third, that doesn't matter what I say, like they only, are going to go with the lowest rate, and nothing I say seems to resonate. So
that is something I don't know if it was a third. I think that's one of the things that we said in the book. It talks about 16%. No matter how low your price is, you're not getting the deal.
Yeah.
16%, no matter what your charge, you're going to get the deal no matter what. Right. Because they just like you were referred, like, it was just, it's like no problem. The third, it's that 68% in the middle that's up for grabs. Right. Like that's where you're on. That's where your job and your goal has to be. Like, I have to show so much value, right? Like I talk about is like, if I don't get the deal, then where it's tough is when you're newer and you don't have a lot of transactions going on. You don't have a lot of leads, right? That's the tough part, because you're like, I got to get it though. I really got to get it. And that's where I think it gets really frustrating. And the one of the best antidotes to it is more leads. It just is. And that's easy to say and a lot harder to do. You just have to have a long-term view of it, I think. So that was good. Thank you, Giuseppe. Chris, you got something, please?
Yeah, I think pretty much the same as G. Yeah, you don't want to spew like all the value on the phone on initial goals call. You want to listen to them, have a good goals call. Because I don't think a lot of lenders actually do discovery calls as well as we do. They're like, fill out this loan app and then I'll send you loan options in a PDF and that's it. So if you do the goals call initially, listen to them and, you know, get them to like you, I think you have a better shot at converting that lead, whether your price is, you're not the best, right? But ultimately you want to get that goals call. And if they're like, yeah, I don't want you to pull credit, still send them loan options. And you got to get the Zoom meeting, because in the Zoom meeting, that's where you really show your value. You show them, hey, this is how we do it. Here's a TCA, not some PDF that your other lenders are probably sending you. Here's the bond chart. Here's what we're thinking. Here's, you know, just, you got to show value. And I think that's the best thing you can do in rate shoppers, but it's going to happen and you're going to lose deals, and it is what it is. I used to get pretty upset about it too, like Giuseppe, but obviously now that you have more business, more leads, you just kind of say whatever and on to the next one. But I don't have a specific script. It kind of depends on the person.
But what if somebody, let me ask you this question. What do you do? What do you do if right off the bat, and then maybe we'll get a little more specific here. Maybe this will help, Ryan. Hey, I just want to let you know up front, I'm shopping around. I'm going to be shopping around for a mortgage. I just want to let you know.
Great. How many lenders are you talking to? 2, 1. Okay, if it's like 1, you're like, all right, I got this. It's like 4. It's like, okay. And then are they local? Like, are you working with a local lender? Or are these online? Because then you can kind of narrow down and kind of then tell them, well, your offer, if you're working with a Rocket Mortgage or some online lender, you know, maybe some online lender or whatbetter.com. Yeah, you're probably going to get a better rate, but your offer's never going to get accepted. So, I mean, you can kind of go that direction by just asking those 2 questions.
Yeah, what it talks about in the book, and I'm going to keep referencing the book. What it talks about is you being the one asking all the questions. If you're just gonna, if you get defensive, you're right. You can't get defensive. You have to be able to have. I think I do believe, and it's in this book, that if you're better prepared for that situation, then you have a fighting chance, right? It's when you're not prepared and you don't have like, here, what am I going to do and how am I going to do it? I love this line: when your buyer says you and your competition are all in the same business, your attitude and response has to be, well, we're in the same industry, but we're not in the same business. And here's why. Now, tell me why. All the things that you just talked about, right, Chris? Like, well, are they local? They're going to get your offer accepted, that kind of stuff. So that's good.
And they close quickly. Like, there's more to you got to let them know, like, there's more to the rate there's more to buying a home than just the rate. And I think the book also says something. Oh man, I lost my train of thought. Oh, damn it. I'll come back to it.
Okay.
You can touch on, there's, we all, essentially we all get our rates from the same place. So really it's about finding the right rate and cost combination for you. And during this process, we'll explore that as well as different variables to, ways to structure mortgage insurance. You kind of, confuse them a little bit with probably touching on some things, just touching on them. that the other lender probably hasn't touched on at all. You can get, at this point in time, right, because the economy changes, right? So now you're like, well, yeah, I can get you the lowest rate, but does that make the most sense for you? I don't think so. I don't think paying points makes any sense right now. I'd actually recommend a higher rate, and you can get into the economy, recession, lower rates, free refinance. Talking about that free refinance, I know Chris talks about it a lot. Like, people get really excited about that, and you give them an example. You're like, I have clients that refinance 4 times over the last 3 years. If the average American spends $5,000 or $6,000 to refinance, they save $20,000.
Well, I think that's
because they did their first loan with me.
One of the things that I think is really important to start bringing into your conversation is this is much more than a single transaction event, right? So part of the service and value that I provide is that we're going to stay with you. So we're not like Rocket Mortgage where you're going to refinance you and then we're just going to email you every month to try to get you to do another loan with us. So, but we are going to check in with you. A few weeks after your closing, we're going to be checking in, make sure everything's okay, make sure you don't have any questions. And we're going to check in with you, through the first year, just to make sure everything's on track. But every year on an annual basis, you're going to hear from me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the loan that you're in is still working for you in a way that minimizes the cost of the interest to you over the long haul of this loan. My goal is to make sure that you've got the lowest overall total cost of financing over your lifetime of owning a home and having a mortgage. Anybody can just quote your rate and move on. But we build relationships with our clients. The reason that you were referred to me, because everybody gets referred to you. We're not buying leads here, right? So you know why you were referred to me? Because we take care of our clients. And we take care of them for the long haul, especially if you're referred by a past client. Well, does that make sense? So bringing in this follow-up process that you're going to have, along with, I'm going to also be emailing you on a monthly basis and a real estate wealth report. You're going to have an idea of what's going on with the rates and with the value of your property, because that's going to impact where you are. My clients, I'll make sure my clients maximize their wealth through real estate by using these strategies. So this isn't just a one-time transaction.
Yeah. For the new guys, we have no one has what we have. I'm being honest, the guarantees, everything, total cost analysis, HomeBot. I don't think any lender has all the tools we have. So you've just got to get that initial call and you've got to do the Zoom meeting and then you can show your value. And then the free refinance is huge. You dangle that carrot. They're like, yeah, why wouldn't I use you? Because I'm going to save more money down the road.
I think it depends too on who you're talking to. So a first-time home buyer is obviously going to want the value of service, right? They have no idea what they're doing. I think the more you speak to the steps in the process, like we're going to do our discovery call, and then we have a Zoom, and then we have a rate lock call, and you make them feel like they're going to be taken care of at every step and they don't have to worry about anything. That's going to be the value to them and keep them from shopping. Where you have, a buyer that's done this 3 times before, you could talk about the free refi, the rate and cost combination, things like that. So it really depends on who you're talking to too, and what is valuable to them, I think.
For sure. And for the new guys, I think this is in the price objections book, Dave, but it's people don't know what to ask, right? So that you get an email, it's what are your rates? I used to get offended by that, but then I read the book and I realized people just don't, that's just what they think. They see the ads on TV and radio. They just think it's oh, let me ask what your rates are. So don't get offended by that, because
people
they
don't
know what they're doing.
You're 100% right. They don't know what to ask you. So they want to know what the rate is, because they know we all know instinctively a low rate is better than a high rate, right? That's what we'd think. And if we don't know anything about getting a mortgage, we're like, so what's your rate? They only ask you because they don't know what else to ask you. And our job is to educate. Christine pointed out a really good point, especially that first-time home buyer isn't as they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Will somebody please help me? When you become the guide and the teacher and the person that's going to walk them through the whole process and explain everything to them, price becomes really not, it shouldn't be an issue at all. And there are times when that first time home buyer will like not, there will be a time when that first time home buyer surprises you every now and then. They'll be like having talked to somebody else and you're like, oh my God. And so that does happen. It's not like it's unprecedented. I've had that happen. Sure, everybody has. But for the most part, that's not the case. And so that's a really good point. Who wants to add something? Casey?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something on that. The initial discovery call, it's a 5 or 10 minute phone call, right? Or, you know, maybe a little bit longer if you start getting into some more detailed questions. But understanding when they say, hey, I'm shopping, or hey, I'm going to talk to a couple different lenders, figure out and ask the questions of who they might be talking to. And I think this came up, like what Chris said, are they talking to Wells Fargo because they bank with them? Great. Well, they might have said, hey, I'm talking with other lenders. But if you don't know who you're going against, you're not going to know how to set that conversation up. If they say, yeah, I'm talking to 5 different lenders, 2 are a local credit union, I'm talking to someone from Fairway, and I'm talking to Wells Fargo. My next question is the lowest rate the most important thing to you when purchasing a new house? And they're going to respond, yes. And I'm going to say, why? Let them tell you why. Because I want the lowest monthly payment possible. Okay. And you can get into a little bit more detail as to why they're talking to that many people. It takes a lot of time to talk to that many lenders. Like that's a full-time job, getting all of your documents into 5 different lenders.
Right.
And then you get into the conversation. Have you spoken with them already? Have you had a meeting to review loan options? No. The answer is going to be no almost every single time, even if they've already gotten a pre-approval from them. They have not had a meeting. Great. Okay, well, let's schedule a meeting. And even if they're still talking to 3 or 4 other people, like G said, you don't want to spend a ton of time on them. There's that slim chance you might get it. But if it's the person who's only talked to Wells Fargo, set up that meeting, because your meeting is going to get them to use you instead of Wells Fargo every single time. I use Wells Fargo as an example because they suck, right? You're never getting that offer accepted in today's market. So you have to understand why they're shopping, what they're shopping for, and who they've spoken with, and what kind of information they've already gotten back, because that's how you're going to leverage your next conversation with them, and you're going to reshape the way that you're going to converse with them. It's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all script.
This is really good, Casey, because you're pointing out that like not knowing why they're shopping, they don't know why they're shopping, but they think, well, because if I shop, I'm going to get a better deal. That's what they think. Why else would you go through the hassle, right? Like, because it is a hassle. I used to, when somebody said, well, I'm just going to make the decision based on the lowest rate ever. It's like, all right, well, I got a suggestion here. You got a computer in front of you? And I've done this a couple of times and nobody wanted to do it. It's like, go to lendingtree.com. Just go to there real quick. Let me show you. It's like, because if you really just want the lowest rate, I mean, this is how you're going to get it. I don't know, if it's going to close, but you'll get a rate that's really low. Go to lendingtree.com and fill out the form, like what you're looking for. You'll get you're going to have like 20 or 30 emails in no time that will be offers of financing that people will tell you, here's what you're going to have to do. Now you're going to have a lot of work to do because you got to sort through the offers and you got to figure out who you can trust. Does that sound like it might be a solution for you? No. All right, well, let's keep talking. Let me show you how I work. And then you can decide if this is a better, but so then you get back to, you can just take that idea of shopping, because dude, you really want to shop around? And so, yeah, that becomes less of an issue. I'd like to hear from John and Jack, and then Ryan, since this was your question, if you have another idea of something that you'd like to ask, don't hesitate. And new people, same. And I just saw a really good chat from Jessica. I think that there's some takeaways that we can do where we can have somebody do an example or do a sample of what the difference is between the process. We'll do a better description of the process people are taking their clients through from lead receiving through pre-approval. And then we'll talk some more about that, like not today, but on another call. So John or Jacqueline, go ahead.
I was going to add to all that, kind of the conversation that Casey had. You have to have that with your realtor referral partner too. If your referral partner is giving out 3 cards, that same conversation that Casey just had, you need to have with your referral partner, because, and the question is, do you have a way that you deal with your customers to provide the best customer service and to get through the transaction and want referrals in the future? Yes, no, maybe. Well, don't you want the same thing for your customer? Do you want your customer to go through the like stressful process of talking to 3 or 4 lenders? Like, do you trust the lenders that you're referring that they're going to work with you in the same way that you want to be worked with? Do you want your customers to take 5 or 6 hours of their life just to figure out what lender they might use?
That's
You know,
huge,
and do you
John.
know that process, and do you trust the process of every business card you're giving out? Or do you trust the process of encouraging your customer to get the lowest rate and having them be annoyed by the fact that they're calling Wells Fargo? You know, like, why do you want that for your customer? Like, how is that not stressful for your customer if you're promoting it? So you
Christine,
always
what
really
did-
have to have that conversation.
What'd you say, Christine?
I said that's so important. All of my agents tell our clients that they won't work with another lender when they send them to me. So they don't, I haven't had a shopper in a very long time. And I think that's
Yeah.
a big reason why, because I have such huge backup from my realtor partners.
Yeah,
Let me
your-
ask you
your
something.
realtor-
Christine, let me ask you something. Did you take the time to walk your realtor through your process with your buyers?
Yeah, so they actually attended a pre-approval meeting with me in the very beginning of our partnership, and I took them through the whole process of the first client they sent me with the client's permission, and that was it after that.
So because I would
Yeah.
contend that you could do that without the client being there, and you could just go, let me show you how I work. Let me show
I do
you
that
the
in our
process that,
Our first meeting.
yeah, let me show you the process I take a client through. Because a huge part of this is preempting shopping from the beginning. Let me make no mistake. When they show up and I'm shopping, it's much more challenging, right? That's the whole point. This book talks about like the best way to overcome a price objection is to not get it. I mean, that is the best way. And so the idea of making your realtor partner your partner that just goes, I want you to work with Jessica. That's who I want you to work with. And the reason that I want you, and here's why. And when they articulate why, they're like, okay, that makes sense, because the customer will do it if they've been told to do it, right? So I think you brought up an excellent point, John. Jack, what do you got?
So I like to ask the client if they say that they're speaking to somebody else or they're going to talk to some other lenders, I ask them why. And then I ask them like what's driving that conversation. I like to know whether or not they're a first-time home buyer or not, because that changes my dialogue after that. And then I also like to find out where they are in the process with the other lenders if they've already talked to them. So depending on where they're at there, I'll be like, well, have they sent you numbers? Do you have a pre-qual? Do you have a pre-approval? I explain the difference between the two, because a lot of times they're like, oh yeah, they gave us a pre-qual, we're approved up to 400. And it's like, well, have they showed you what that means? And the answer is generally no. So that will kind of guide that piece of it. If they're not a first-time homeowner and they've bought before or they've refinanced before, I ask them, well, was there anything about the process the last time that didn't go well that we want to make sure to avoid this time? Or is there something that went really well that we want to make sure that we replicate? And that will usually tell me any kind of pain point, because if they've bought before and they didn't do it with me, something happened with that last transaction, or they've just lost contact with that loan officer that's making them move on to somebody else. So I want to know what that is. And with the first-time home buyers, I always just like to tell them, you know, of course it makes sense that you want to talk to other lenders. The reason why I really like working with first-time home buyers is because I like to look at the education piece. I want this all to make sense. I realize this is a lot of information. We want to make sure you understand it every step of the way. My job is to show you what you have access to, and it's your job to tell me which one makes the most sense for your financial goals. And I just tell them to look for, when you're interviewing other lenders, to work with the one who you feel like is going to take the best care of you from start to finish, and who's going to have your best interests in mind. Because most of the time clients qualify for a variety of loan programs, and we want to make sure that we're putting you into the one that makes the most sense for you based on whatever your goals are. So usually within that conversation, I will win the deal. So it's similar to Christine. I don't get rate shopped a lot. I did happen to lose a deal last week. But I think that client had a financial advisor in her ear based on some of the conversation I was having with her. And so I try really hard not to badmouth the other guy, just in case they're going to come back. The other thing that I love doing when they don't choose me is I'll CC the agent, because it's usually an agent that's referred me. And I'll send an email, be like, hey, I'm really sorry to hear that we won't be helping you with this transaction. We're really excited for you in your new home. If there's anything that we could have done better, please let me know, because I strive to provide the very best level of value and education for my clients possible. So if we miss the mark somewhere, I want to know so that I can take better care of the next client if something comes up. So I always want to open the opportunity for the deal to come back, because the trauma loan that I had last week, that deal came back. And so I want to make sure that I'm always kind of setting the stage and that the agent knows, hey, I'm still in the background if you need me to pick the deal back up, because a lot of times another lender is promising the moon and the stars when they can't actually deliver. So I try to just make sure I'm still delivering a value add, but I'm being a little bit more subtle about it and not necessarily saying, well, I guarantee my pre-approvals in this one, X, Y, and Z. And so because I put that in the email that I send out with my TCA, I give them that link to the website for the pre-approval, like what sets us apart. And then I have them try to schedule either an in-person or an online meeting with them at that point. So that's kind of how I've started to combat that a little bit. And then to Casey's point, or John's, is no, if you're find out from your agents to be like, am I the only person you're referring? And if I'm not, who's the other person? I want to know what's different between the two of us, so that I realize I'm not going to get every deal if they have a good relationship with this other lender, but I'm going to get at least 50% of them. So I want to know, what else can I do to one up the other guy? Because I don't want to badmouth the other guy because of the whatever relationship they have there. So I just want to make sure I can just do it just a little bit better and maybe provide just a little bit more value that just kind of edges out the competition.
Yeah, what Jack said, right now, if you lose a deal, I have that in an email template. I'm sure she does too. So if anyone wants that, so you don't have to like rewatch the video and type it up, you can have that. Any templates I use,
Can you send it, G?
Yeah, I'm glad to share all of them. For most people here, are you getting most leads? Does it seem like phone calls or emails? No, most new referrals. Are they coming via email? For me, they're coming like 80% via email.
Yep.
It seems like. So when even the last couple of years, when it was more refis and real rate was like in front of everyone's, top of the list. It doesn't matter. It's kind of fun if you have a good reply, right? New lead email, right, that you can reply to. It doesn't really matter what they say on their email. It's like, hey, I'm shopping around for a new mortgage or whatever it is. I'm talking to a few lenders. Like my reply doesn't even acknowledge that. It's completely the same. It just says, hey, let's schedule, cross-sell the referral source, schedule the discovery call, and then tells them what we're going to do after that, sets them up for the Zoom meeting and things like that, so that they have already kind of a roadmap of what's going to happen. So if anyone wants that email, I can send it out too.
That's the other thing, that if somebody brings up, I'm going to be shopping around, and you overreact to it and you make that the focus of this conversation, you're going right off of what you bring, which is the value that you bring, was like, well, let me tell you my process. Let me tell you, like, okay, you're shopping around, whatever. I don't need to, I barely need to acknowledge it unless it's adversarial, right? Like, so if it becomes an adversary, I just want the rate. Like, if I'm not even going to get to do my thing, it's like, you know what? I'll send you a quote. I don't want to spend a lot of time with somebody who's just a predatory price shopper, because there's a percentage of the population that is, and it doesn't matter what you do. They may even say yes. I had the worst one I ever had was the guy beat me up. I gave him concessions. I waived some fees and locked him in. And then the next day he goes like, hey, I got a better deal over here. And I'm like going, okay, we're done. I'm done. Thanks. Good luck. I wish you the best. And I moved, and I just let it go. I was so pissed. And so
we've been talking about everything like on our discovery call, right? Not, hey, because this will happen. Newer loan officers, I promise you someday this will happen to you. They will take your guaranteed pre-approval. They will get under contract. And then they will call you the next day and say, I'm going with this other lender because they're cheaper. They will use your pre-approval to get under contract to use someone else. And guess what? It's not likely that they got that referral from the agent. So you and the agent are both pissed at this client.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
there's
so
ways to deal with that too.
what Christine's doing is really smart. She's enlisting the agent to make sure that's a big, again, preemptive strategies to keep them from being in a shopping mode. Ryan, you had your mic off for a second. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say that happened to me twice this past month.
It
We're
sucks.
Yeah. No, I mean, it just happens, you know,
Yeah.
you just have to shake it off.
I had a loan officer say that, oh yeah, we'll offer no cost refis for the life of the loan too. I was like, did you get that in writing? And is the CEO like, signed on it? Because like an LO can't do that.
I'd like to back up what Jack said. Like, there have been times where I've like, someone's like, yeah, we're gonna use someone else, and I don't like losing. So I'll set a follow-up task like a week later or 2 weeks later and be like, how's it going? And I don't always win, but maybe like 10 or 15% of the time, I'll get another crack at it. And then a few times you'll see like the other lender was lowballing their rate on the initial, breakdown. Or the communication sucks or something, and I've gotten the deal. So
Jan lost a deal. Jan lost a deal this week. And we're pretty sure that it's a complete misquote. It's just wrong. Like it's not going to happen. And the LE, all he had was an LE, and the LE, the way the LE is set up, you can't do it. You can't do the loan the guy's showing him. It's an FHA cash out with too high of an LTV. And he's showing it to him like, here you go. Yeah, I can do this. And the guy's like, oh, it's so much better. It's like it's a point better in rate. It's like, you're not getting this deal. This doesn't even work. And so it's just, there's not a lot you can do when the client is just that focused on price. And this goes back to, you're going to lose deals because of price. Sucks. And so you have to like commit. And in this book, he says this, like, just commit to the strategies in this book and continue to practice and get better, because as a sales professional, that's what you're supposed to do. Right.
And even if you do lose the deal, I'm still setting up tasks for like December, November to follow up with these people and refinance them when rates come down. Because if they go with better.com or whatever, that lender either is not going to be in the business or they're not going to be on top of things. So
Yeah, I do that as well. I tell them, it's like, hey, I'll adopt your mortgage. You send me your CD once you close. And a lot of times I'll look at the CD and I'm like, this isn't fucking better than what I would have, but that's fine. I've had that happen twice. And I'm like, do you know that you paid 2 points? They're like, yeah. I'm like, I could have done that, but you didn't want to pay points. But okay.
God.
Yeah. Right on. Well, this has been great, guys. I think we'll start, but maybe this will be something that we come around to. Just hearing from everybody else's experience is so valuable. And I definitely think one of the things we need to do is figure out a way to like show people the sales processes that other people go through with their clients. So that would be really valuable for a future call as well. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time. Let's have an awesome Friday. Oh, wait. I got one more. So last week I introduced a Z-ism called good, right? So when things go bad, we say good because things go bad. They just do. And adopting an attitude of losing your mind when things go bad is never healthy. The more upset you get, the worse the bad thing becomes. When you decide like, okay, when something bad happens, I'm going to say good because it's an opportunity for us to get better. So everybody remembers that. I have a new one, and it's just these 3 letters, ACE, A-C-E. What we control every day, we have control over 3 things every day: attitude, commitment, and effort. ACE, right? So adopt that mindset, because that's it. That is what you have control over. And you all can have a great attitude. You all can have a deeper commitment, and you can all give 100% effort. So adopt that mindset and you will have a better professional life. You'll have a better personal life. All right, everybody. Thanks for your time today. It was awesome. Have an awesome day. I'll see you guys on the call.